Paige, and I'm the Family Programs Coordinator at the Harn Museum of Art. Today, we're going to discover the art of the polka dot by learning about artist Yayoi Kusama and her dreams of covering the world in polka dots. We'll read this book, From Here to Infinity, and then we'll draw inspiration from Yayoi Kusama to create our very own polka dot pumpkin sculptures. Let's get started! This book was written by Sarah Suzuki, a curator at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. Yayoi Kusama was born in the country of Japan, on the island of Honshu, in a town called Matsumoto City. An old palace made of wood and stone overlooked a moat where swans swam. The streets were lined with little shops, and snow-capped mountains rose in the distance, swallowing up the sun as it went down in the evening. Yayoi's family owned nurseries where all kinds of flowers and vegetables grew, and workers tended the plants as they matured from seeds to sprouts to stalks. But Yayoi yearned for a different life, far from the countryside. She dreamed about what lay beyond the mountains in places far from Matsumoto City. She longed to leave home and see the world. Yayoi's mother wanted her to stay home and learn old-fashioned manners, how to dress elegantly, walk demurely, eat politely, and find a proper husband. But Yayoi wanted to be an artist. Every day she went outside with ink and brushes and paper. She drew things she saw and things she imagined. She looked closely at the pebbles that lined the riverbed and at the leaves and stalks of plants, and she drew them as chains of tiny cells that looked like dots. When she was older and studying in art school, her teachers disapproved of her work, and they demanded that Yayoi paint in the traditional, precise Japanese style. She wanted to go where she could live without rules. When she was 28 years old, she packed up her silk kimonos and thousands of drawings and stuffed dollar bills into the toes of her shoes. It was her first airplane trip. There was only 4 other passengers, and the weather was stormy with rain and lightning. The airplane wobbled and dipped as it flew to America. In New York, Yayoi went to the top of the Empire State Building, the tallest building in a city full of tall buildings. When she looked down, she saw buses and cars and yellow taxis zooming up and down the avenues, and bankers and teachers and artists rushing to work. From up on the 86th floor, they looked like dots. She felt very far from quiet Matsumoto City and her mother's rules. Here, it seemed, anything was possible. Yayoi set about turning her drawings of dots into paintings. The dollar bills that she had brought to America quickly ran out, and she spent what little money she had left on paints and canvases. She worked day and night. She painted when she was cold, she painted when she was hungry, she painted when she was lonely, and she turned her dots into sculptures too, into soft stuffed tubes that covered sofas and chairs and boats. She was devoted to her dots. For her, they were a way of thinking about the world among the stars as one dot among millions of others. They were a way of thinking about infinity. Sometimes, when she grew frustrated, she visited the Museum of Modern Art. She gazed at paintings by other artists, and she thought about why and how they were made. She looked at pictures of dancing girls and swirling night skies, trying to solve them as if they were puzzles. Her paintings seemed so different from those she had seen at MoMA. When she at last was ready to show her work in public, she invited all of the friends she had made in New York. When she arrived at the gallery, a crowd was spilling out onto the sidewalk. Her friends lifted her into the air, shouting, "Yayoi, you've finally done it!" Word about her artwork spread quickly. Her friends told their friends, newspapers wrote about her work, and reporters clamored to interview her about her dots. Now she began to show them in other cities, all over the United States and Europe. Her dots were covering the world. They appeared in Venice in thousands of dot-shaped mirrors scattered over a big green lawn, on a pumpkin in a pier, on dresses and t-shirts on people walking down the street, and in mirrored rooms where glowing dots were reflected and reflected again, an infinity of dots. Having visited many countries all over the world, Yayoi returned to Japan. The country had changed since she left, with many different artists challenging the old traditional style, as Yayoi had been doing all along. She still lives in Japan, and she continues to paint her dots every day. Here are a few examples of artworks by Yayoi Kusama. This artwork is called Infinity Mirrored Room, the souls of millions of light years away. And this artwork is called the Obliteration Room. This painting at the Harn Museum of Art is called Nets Infinity 2s. That's a lot of polka dots. The end. Now that we've learned about artist Yayoi Kusama and her dreams of covering the world and everything in it in dots, it's time to draw inspiration from Kusama to create our very own polka dot pumpkin paper sculpture. We'll need a few supplies to get started. First, we'll need 4 strips of construction paper, a sheet of construction paper, glue, scissors, a hole puncher, and some drawing utensils. Our first step is to decorate our 4 strips of construction paper with polka dots. How will you create your dots? You can try using a marker to create big polka dots or little polka dots. You can use a hole puncher to create polka dots out of paper and then glue them down to your strip of paper. You can cut out circles, which are the shapes of polka dots, to glue onto your paper. Or you could paint polka dots of all different sizes onto your paper. Set your strips aside for a minute or 2 to let the glue or paint dry. Now we're ready to construct our paper pumpkin sculpture. We'll take 2 strips and we'll place them on top of each other to make the letter X. We'll use our other 2 strips to make a second X. Glue in place, then let dry. Our next step is to take one of our X-shaped paper strips and place it on top of the other to create a star shape. Glue in place, then let dry. We've created a 2-dimensional star shape, which means that our star is flat, just like the table. But we're not making a star, we're making a pumpkin. And we'll need to transform this flat 2-dimensional star into a 3-dimensional sculpture. We'll flip over our paper strips so that the polka dots are facing the table, and we'll take our glue and start connecting opposite ends of the strips together in the center. Whoops! Make sure to use a lot of glue and to hold the strips together until they feel safely secured. Continue gluing opposite strips to the center until every strip is done. By connecting the 2 opposite strips together, we've created a 3-dimensional shape. Our paper sculpture is no longer flat. It's now becoming round, just like a pumpkin. Add a stem to your pumpkin by cutting out a piece of construction paper and gluing it to the top of your 3-dimensional paper pumpkin sculpture. And there you have it, a polka dot pumpkin paper sculpture inspired by artist Yayoi Kusama.